Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today we are back again with another video of best champions in Marvel Contest of Champions at December 2019 basically. And today we're going to be talking about a science class. Now science class is a fairly interesting one. We did get quite a lot of new science champions added this year as well, basically a full Fantastic Four lineup. Some of them were a bit more successful, some of them were less so, but either way, that definitely is a fairly vibrant class and also home of my favorite champion in the entire game. And with that, we're basically going to start off our top 5. And in the 5th spot, now it's a very kind of like tricky spot because I do have clear top 4 for science class, and I think it's pretty clear for most people. But for 5th spot, there is quite a bit of competition to begin with, and there are definitely kind of good arguments to be made for quite a few champions. But I believe currently in top 5, I'm going to put in Human Torch. And Human Torch, again, with kind of like apostrophe and condition that he is for like larger rosters, because he in his definition is a bit of a niche champion. If opponent deals energy attacks, then he is great for that fight, so that automatically kind of like shortlists a number of fights he's going to be good for, and obviously all of the Mystic class. And when you activate your pre-fight ability, then he becomes decently good as well. But the pre-fight ability does give him something that pretty much nobody else has in game currently, and that is easily usable passive damage over time effect that pretty much nothing in game is immune for, because it doesn't even count as an incinerate. It's kind of its own thing, and to my best knowledge, pretty much nothing in game is immune to those effects. Therefore, even when it comes to like using him for maybe a single specific fight, and which is pretty much his kind of like purpose in most of the situations, then he can do something else that pretty much nobody else can in game. And I still stick to my gun saying that in like a regular matchup against an average opponent, he pretty much sucks. He doesn't have the biggest block proficiency, the biggest health pool, or the biggest attack. And if he doesn't have like a good way to gain smolders outside of dropping his own special attacks in opponent's block, or dropping level 3s, then he definitely seems to be quite an underwhelming champion. But again, if you do pick your right time to use this guy, whether that is against a Mystic champion or whether that is against somebody like Darkhawk or Sentinel, who do launch like multi-hit special ones, and you can just block and immediately gain like 4 smolders, that's quite huge for the character. And then he's able to kind of like put on a lot of damage quite quickly. Additionally, obviously, the pre-fight ability lets him kind of like go in his Uber mode and make him able to deal with many more different options and threats. Now, the one kind of like biggest critique is, even if he is awakened, you do not kind of really have a guaranteed way of gaining back that pre-fight ability, which kind of sucks. And also kind of means that he does not really have to be an awakened. You just need to accept his limitations, that he can be used for one fight in that quest with pre-fight ability, and that's about it. And you kind of need to pick and choose which fight you're going to use him for. Additionally, he obviously is a member of Fantastic Four, therefore he has access to kind of like a good group of synergies that enhance his level 1s, level 2s, give him either heal or power gain at the beginning of the fight, improve his block proficiency, so on and so forth. So he can do quite a lot when paired up with a full team of Fantastic Four, and definitely becomes a lot stronger, a lot more viable. But yeah, that being said, I think I'm fairly happy with him chilling in spot number 5, but again, with that kind of like sign put next to his names that he is not really suitable for many of the fights. He's definitely not a great champion to rank up like early on in your progression as like your 1st, 2nd, 3rd or 4th rank 5 champion. If you have a bit more established roster, then I think he is going to be a worthwhile addition to it and will answer some niche utility needs or specific fights and specific quests. But yeah, that being said, Human Torch is science champion number 5 currently in the game, in my opinion. Moving on to spot number 4, and in spot number 4, I'm gonna place the Thing. Now, the Thing is becoming more and more present in pretty much all of the endgame content, and one can definitely make an argument that he potentially should be somewhere up higher on the list. And I'm sure in many different people's lists he will be placed quite higher, but the thing's biggest weakness in my opinion is extremely kind of like slow start and a large amount of chip damage you're going to be taking with him initially, because it doesn't really hit all that hard up until he's ramped up to like 60 passive furies from his like base kit, and then possibly like a level 3 dropped or something. But that being put aside, obviously the character has a lot of fantastic uses, variations how to use him. There's a good list of immunities. He's immune to armor break, armor shatter, nullify, fate seal, and shock, I believe, yes. So that is a fairly unique list of utilities, and which kind of becomes more and more useful, especially the immunity to nullify effects is fairly astounding, because it lets you bypass quite commonly found nodes like Pilfer or nodes of that kind of nature, or simple effects of nullify. So that definitely makes him worthwhile. Additionally, there have been more and more matchups coming out where the thing does actually extremely well. For instance, even Dr. Doom. The thing is kind of like a natural built-in counter to Dr. Doom, because you're shock immune, you're never going to get that shock placed on you. Additionally, you have class advantage, and additionally to all that, Dr. Doom can't nullify any buffs on you should you happen to have any. So he definitely has a lot of kind of good traits for many of the newer champions, and you can definitely see him present throughout the entire contest. He's good in 6.2, he's good in 6.3, he's one of the best answers for last 10% of no retreat node on champion boss, which is also like a fairly big thing, fairly big deal, a lot of people are struggling with. And that's all not even mentioning full Fantastic Four synergies, which lets him kind of explode much faster than he normally does, because he gains like double the amount of his rock stack charges. And also with his champion synergy, obviously he can go in kind of insane damage mode and hit really, really hard. And so there's definitely a lot to be liked. Now, I do have my reservations about some of those things, some of the playstyles, or even the champion. The champion as a champion itself that I don't enjoy, and I typically don't particularly like bringing in champions that I don't find useful by themselves. And the champion definitely is not the best synergy partner the thing could have had, in my opinion. And that kind of brings him down in my eyes as well a bit. But again, that all being said, where he can be used, where he can absolutely demolish the content, he definitely often is doing just that. He's also really good against stuff like Annihilus, which is a really crazy annoying defender. He has inbuilt abilities to work around unstoppable buffs. He can go unstoppable himself, therefore he's useful for can't stop, won't stop. And I did give this guy quite a lot of praise in my 2019 top champion video as well, therefore I'm not going to go into too much detail anymore. But I think the thing is definitely well worth of a top 5 ranking on Science champion list. And he's also one of the champions that is quite likely to move up even higher in future. Obviously he's never gonna capture that #1 Science champion in the game spot for as long as Quake is not nerfed or something, because yeah, Quake's untouchable, so that's gonna be #1. Either way, so that leaves us with spots number 3 and 2 first to talk about before we get to the Quake. And yeah, so spot number 3, and in my personal opinion, I'm gonna give it to Void. Now Void is crazy good, right? It might not be, again, my favorite kind of, or my cup of tea champion, because I do typically enjoy playing with a bit faster champions. But that being said, he has one of the biggest health pools in game. That alone is really kind of like a positive thing to note. Second of all, his ability kit is quite useful, because once he gets going, opponents basically lose most of their away chance, which is important. They also pretty much never ever crit against you, and that combined with a huge health pool kind of makes him even tankier than he is. Additionally, you have this whole heal and power gain reversal, which is actually being kind of like diminished recently with improved power gain nodes and the way petrifies interact with them. Unfortunately, kind of it's not the way we would prefer. It's basically if opponent has 100% increased power gain node, when you do have 2 petrifies on, then instead of being able to completely stop the power gain. You just kind of slow it down and revert it back to its original position. But again, that being said, he's still extremely useful champion to be bringing in a lot of different tricky situations, and he's one of those champions in a game that no matter how you twist and turn, and even if you don't like the guy, even if you don't want to use him daily, time and time again there will be matchups and there will be fights where he's close to invaluable or close to irreplaceable, because that is the kind of staple he has becoming since he has entered the contest. And he has been doing immensely great job kind of defending his position, because even to this date there are extremely few bad matchups for the guy, because the way he's built lets him bypass a lot of different things. For instance, champions that can shrug up debuffs quicker, like Rogue or whatever, or when you have these rapid metabolism nodes that let opponents shrug everything off quick, they don't work on Void, because all of those debuffs he places are permanent on his level 1. Also, the champions that could fight or could present problems when you place damage or time effects on them, or even nodes themselves, like Cornered, he can bypass Cornered, because technically you're doing damage over time, but none of the debuffs that you have placed in themselves are damage over time debuffs. So he can bypass Corner. He can also do damage on the life cycle nodes, because again, it's his ability that's dealing the damage, and even though technically you are dealing damage over time kind of effect, but you do not have any damage over time debuffs. So with the way he's built, it's kind of like sneaky to a degree, but it actually gives a lot of versatility to Void, and he's able to shine in many different scenarios. And even in the fights where you think he kind of would be stopped, he isn't. Now, there are obviously a couple of the nodes that definitely do hurt this guy. Tenacity is introduced as a separate node in 6.3, which basically lets opponents shrug off any debuffs or give them a chance to shrug them off. It's troublesome for Void. Also, stuff like Mighty Charge 2 or 3 or 1, all of those do present quite a lot of problems and basically make Void unusable in those matchups. But again, that being said, he's one of those champions that kind of keep finding new and new uses. His Incinerate immunity is obviously also useful. He's still one of the best counters to stuff like Mephisto, for instance. And Incinerate immunity in general is becoming more and more kind of like needed in the game. The one downside to this guy is that he's not able to deal any Incinerate damage in any way, shape or form though, because that seems to be a new requirement as well. But all that being said, he's extremely versatile. He's extremely great champion. He's quite unique, and to every account, in my opinion, in this game should have access to Void, whether it's a 4-star, whether it's a 5-star, or whatever it is. But having Void that you can use is extremely important, because you never know when you're going to need him. And to me, Void, to a degree, is even somewhat kind of like comparable to Ronan, but obviously Void is a lot more usable in like your day-to-day situations, and he has a lot more going on than Ronan does. But Ronan is another champion that I just like to have as a useful tool for when needed to bring out, and that is my approach to the champion. Even though I don't particularly enjoy Void's playstyle, I can't escape the fact that I need him for certain situations. And he's also a champion that's really great at rank 4, and many have kind of like debated and argued, and now currently in game in 6.3, I believe, was the first time ever I kind of like wished my Void was rank 5, and I kind of felt that the rank 4 is a bit insufficient. But everything up until 6.3, I was perfectly happy and candid with having Void at rank 4. So maybe in near future I will rethink my position and I'll take him up fully max out. But he is one of those champions that has been doing anything I need of him, even at the rank 4 level. And yeah, that is Void. That is definitely one of the best champions in Science class. But then who is gonna get the spot number 2, right? And for most people it should be quite obvious, and that is going to be Captain America Infinity War. And Captain America Infinity War often gets kind of compared to Void. In my opinion, it's kind of like unjustifiably so, because those are completely different champions. Only thing that both of them have in common is the Petrified debuff, and that's about it. everything else about them is different when it comes to the way they're built, the way they're played, the way what they do in the game. And when it comes to dealing with healing, then one can argue that Captain America is more effective, or at least, yeah, is quicker to a degree. Maybe not more effective, but definitely reverses the healing faster in the fight. And when it comes to dealing with power gain, Void is your go-to option. But other than that, these champions are completely different. And I'll be absolutely honest, I do prefer what Captain America Infinity War brings to the table. First and foremost, because it's fully customizable. It fully depends on what you bring with you on your team. And that also means he's going to be more beneficial to larger accounts where you have at least a couple of champions from each class ranked up, and you kind of can pick and choose and piece your team together in order to make the best version of this champion viable in the quest for what you need him. And yeah, so what he can do, obviously he can place up to 3, actually up to 4 different debuffs on opponent on every single parry. So the classes that you kind of need to keep an eye on for most, first and foremost, probably is Tech, because that is the class that's going to give him ability to place Petrify. Then Cosmic is the class that gives him Armor Break, and Science is the class that gives him Weakness. Now, all other classes also give him some additional abilities, like Mutants give him Kinetic charges every time they drop special attack, which is helpful. Mystics, every time that buff expires or is nullified, also give him charges. This is probably the least useful ability of them all. And Skill is potentially one of the more valuables as well, is because whenever you get inflicted with a debuff, you can basically consume 1 kinetic charge to purify the debuff. All that being said, in order to have 100% chance for these abilities to work, you do need him maxed out. And in my opinion, he definitely is a champion that 100% needs to be awakened and 100% needs to be maxed out in order to be reliable. I would not be able to trust myself with using this champion if there would be even like 5% chance those effects won't work. I need to have that certainty, the fact that they will shrug off the debuffs when they have to, because when you're facing large opponents, even if a single bleed, let's say, gets landed on you, and if your signature ability would fail, it can potentially kill you. So yeah, SIG 200, 100% way to go. And I think we are kind of like getting off topic here, but the base idea is he blocks like a champ. He probably has the best block in the game currently. Can deal some really good damage, even though overall people overestimate Captain America Infinity War damage just because of that big level 2. All in all, he's not the hardest hitting champion for sure, because it takes time to get to the level 2, and the way he plays typically is with a lot of heavy attacks to get that fury. And yeah, so when you actually kind of check out the fight length, it typically is not the fastest, even though he does not maybe land many hits on opponent. Definitely takes a while for him to finish many of the fights off. But that being said, he's definitely not a weak hitter either. So he has decent damage, excellent block, great amount of customization abilities, and a huge array of synergies that are extremely useful. Some of the most used ones for me personally are Tech ones, which are excellent. Science ones can be quite useful as well, so can Cosmic ones. And all in all, this is one of those champions that can be at the base of somebody's account. It's a good option for one of the first rank up champions as well. If you can take him up to a high signature level, he can do so much, and he has proved himself pretty much most of the pieces of the content currently in the game. He's being used and being useful even in 6.2, 6.3, 6.1, several variants, Alliance Wars, Alliance Quest, so on and so forth, but just by being bulky and having great amount of utility. So, Captain America Infinity War, in my opinion, currently in game, slightly out-edges Void, and that's why he gets spot number 2. And when we're going to talk about spot number 1, it's simply going to be Quake. Now, if you are good with Quake, and here is the big thing, Quake can potentially be one of the worst champions in the game if you don't know how to play her, or if you haven't practiced, or if you're not comfortable with her. She definitely demands good gameplay. That being said, if you have put in time and effort, if you have actually practiced using this champion, she pretty much feels like a cheat code. Anything that is hard, anything that is difficult, take a look at it. Chances are Quake is going to be able to deal with it. Quake can even deal with a 6.26 champion. Quake can deal with many things she's not intended to deal with. Just the simple fact that she doesn't have to hit the opponent ever already takes away a large amount of kind of abilities opposing champions may have. Also nodes, many nodes basically do not affect her because she doesn't strike the opponent. Additionally, she can nullify the opponent's ability accuracy by 100, and that is great as well. So even if something would trigger, it doesn't because of her concussion, right? So she has that going on. And obviously, the time you kind of learn to play Quake well, you're going to be able to do many things you didn't think you can in the game. And the biggest strength of Quake is not simply the fact that she can do a lot of the fights. The biggest strength of hers is because she makes those fights seemingly simple. Because if you can Quake an arena fight, you can Quake a champion boss, basically. Might be a bit longer, you might need a bit more focus, but the idea is you play exactly the same. Your game style doesn't change. And that is the biggest kind of like facet why Quake is so great. While many other champions can deal with a lot of problems, with these fights are tricky, they're really skill intensive, they're stressful, they're often hard to pull off. You need to have impeccable timing or intercept skills or what have you. With Quake, none of it matters. If you can, Quake an arena fight, or if you can Quake a simple fight in Uncollected Quest, you can Quake a fight in 6.2. Just as simple as that. So she makes all of the content kind of mainstream and the same difficulty level, and no other champion in game can pretty much do that. At least not from the get-go, not to as many fights. You can argue that, for instance, Vision or Magic, once you have opponent power locked, and if they don't have any specific abilities that interact with you striking them, also can do it to a degree, and few other champions like Doc-Ock. But Quake can do it all the time, every day, all day long. So, in my opinion, she is, in fact, the best champion in game, mainly because of that ability. And she keeps proving it. She keeps absolutely destroying all of the content in any of the variants, whether it's variant 4, whether it's variant 3. Variant 3, it is harder to use her because the fights are quite a bit longer, so I didn't do it too much. But variant 2 absolutely destroys everything. Variant 1 shatters everything. She covers pretty much all my Alliance War fights. And yeah, my biggest problem with Quake is the fact that I don't have more Quakes pretty much. And yeah, absolutely love the champion. She has done so much for me, saved me so many units, saved me so many items, and just helps me to deal with all of the struggles and the content much easier with a lot less headache, and gives me so much more confidence in my ability to tackle any upcoming content. And yeah, that's why Quake is and forever will be the best champion in the game for long as she remains the way she is right now. And that being said, that will be pretty much it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I might have carried away a bit too much with Cap or a few other parts, but hey, happens, right? And before we finish, few definitely notable mentions, the champions to keep an eye out for. When we go to the science class, Wasp is a fantastic champion. I'm not going to put her in top 5, but she is one of my rank 2 6 stars, and I have absolutely never regretted taking her up. She puts in a lot of work, not only as a synergy piece for Ghost obviously, but she does tackle a lot of fights many other champions typically wouldn't be so great at. That passive stun is a really rare thing in this game, and her ability to access it seemingly without kind of like need for special attacks or parries, and the fact that she can spend the entire fight without needing to parry an opponent once, it's great. Her damage is good. Absolutely love the champion. Really solid option for science rank up in my opinion. Mr. Fantastic is a new champion. Originally I had actually placed him above Human Torch as spot number 5, but the fact is he's too new to the contest, and even though the possibilities and the options he can bring to the table are definitely out there and probably greater than many other champions have, The fact is, it's untested, it's unproven, it's kind of theory, and we still have yet to remain to see how practical all of it is going to be. But it's definitely something to keep an eye out for, and this is a champion I have quite a lot of hopes riding for, if you will, for potential ability to solve problems in future, especially if your account is large and you can combine with different champions and make the use of the pre-fight abilities and so on and so forth. Red Hulk is a champion that still performs fantastically to pretty much all of the content and is kind of like simplicity great. He's very simple, very easy to use, great synergy piece for Domino, and puts in a lot of work himself in pretty much all of the content, whether it's variant 1, variant 2, even variant 4 to a degree, in Act 6 chapter, so on and so forth. It's poison immunity, incinerate immunity, and they're pseudo immunities, but still decent damage output, no buffs, no debuffs, kind of very simple, very basic champion that you can always take in and rely on for sure. Then we have Spider-Gwen and She-Hulk, which are the two dominant champions of the slow mechanic, which is extremely underrated still in the contest, in my opinion. So those are fantastic options to rank. She-Hulk is there, and Spider-Gwen. And the last champion I wanted to mention was... Where is the last champion I wanted to mention as a great rank-up option is still Luke Cage and Invisible Woman as well to a degree, but Luke Cage can be phenomenally useful with his indestructibility, with his chain stun loops, with his ability to inflict a lot of damage based on debuffs on opponent, so on and so forth. So he's also a solid science champion in my opinion. And Gladiator Hulk, obviously. I honestly hate everything about Gladiator Hulk, but his Face Me ability is insanely useful, so there's that. So yeah. His Face Me ability is fantastic, love it, one of the best abilities in the game. Just wish I wouldn't hate everything else about the champion, because he's a Hulk that kind of hits like a noodle, and I can never forgive that. And yeah, that all being said right now, that will do for today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I'm going to catch you guys soon. See ya!